Thank you, Brenda. Are we good to go?
Yes.
All right, let's call the meeting to order for the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners. It happens to be September 23rd, 2024. The first item on our agenda is citizen input. Is there anyone in the room that cares to bring something up? I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online that has a raised hand that would like to make a comment in citizen input? No one's online today. Okay, all right, and let's go to item number 1. Our Tucker Monument and Plaque discussion. Lee.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's great to be here. Lee Randall.
Oh, tell the truth. It's beautiful outside and it could be snowy, right?
It's always great to be here. And I will let my colleagues introduce themselves. Eric Nielsen, Capital Improvement Manager.
Heidi Slaba, architect, Cole Architects, yeah, consultant on this project.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you. Yeah. So we wanted an opportunity to share with you the renderings for the DJ Tucker plaque and monument at the corner of Greenwood and Harriman as part of the courthouse expansion, and just be available for any questions you might have related to the monument. If you've had a chance to look at it, we're open for questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to kind of walk you through a few items of note related to the monument. It's about 15 feet wide. It'll be on the corner of a planter up against that southeast corner of the building, in the general location where the building had been. The plaque will be entered in some lava rock that's been recovered from the building demolition. At this point, the City of Bend staff person has taken a preliminary look at the monument and the plaque and is supportive, as well as staff from the Deschutes Historical Museum. So we reached out to them to make sure we were on the right track, and we wanted to bring it to you all for your direction to proceed.
And we'll still have other rocks somewhere saved, right, that we can do something with.
Correct. This is these rocks are just kind of extra that came from other portions of the building. But the facade, that rock is stored safely, labeled and cataloged.
I'm
So
glad
this-
we're doing it.
This was a requirement of the city of Bend, even to do a code amendment to document what's gonna happen. There's a requirement to do this, and this is the final product.
Correct.
Proposed.
Yep, this was part of the decision that came from the City of Bend. The next steps will be for us to formally provide these renderings to staff, and it'll be an administrative approval by staff for the monument.
Staff to the Landmarks Commission. That you refer
Cities,
to,
yeah.
yeah, city
Yep.
staff. So Heidi Kennedy who works for the Landmarks Commission.
I think of 1916, when A.G. Tucker said, let's put a building here. They just started putting a building there, right? Now we got all these policies, procedures and approvals, but it's really positive to be able to take that look and feel, and you can already see that it'll look like a little section of the side of the building at least. It won't be the front, but it'll be the same construction and look and feel. That'll be a nice little plaque with it. I don't have any questions. I think that looks good. Got a the Historical Society board meeting. I attend those board meetings in a couple weeks, so I'll make sure to bring them on too. They probably know about it, but it'll be good to talk about it at the table also.
The only change to the plaque, if I can, is we will put a reference to Deschutes County Historical Society for the use of that historic image.
Well, if there are no additional questions and the board is generally supportive of us moving forward, our next steps will be to submit this to staff for the Landmarks Commission. And we'll move forward. The actual construction will be toward the end of the project, so we won't see anything there for probably at least a year or so.
Dedicated to 2026. Yeah, right at the bottom.
being optimistic.
Yeah, oh. Hopefully dedicated. I see.
Just kidding.
Right.
Of course, it will be done because Eric's in charge, right?
There
Eric?
you go.
That's right.
And it's moving ahead and we're going to
Great.
utilities next and yes,
Right.
so this is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today. Okay, let's go to item number 2. Holly.
Afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Hallie King, planner with a Community Development Department. And this next item before you is a work session item in preparation for a public hearing this Wednesday, September 25th, regarding a request from Thousand Trails RV Campground for to essentially enter into a development agreement with the county. This is, I'm gonna set the table kind of to give a brief overview. I know legal counsel is here as well to answer any questions. The development agreement's got some legal jargon that certainly their input is needed on. So briefly, state law, Oregon revised statutes does authorize counties to enter into development agreements with property owners that stipulate certain requirements and process for such an agreement. And essentially approval of a development agreement must be done by adoption of an ordinance following a public hearing, notice to neighbors, similar to our other land use processes. And so this specific development agreement again is for Thousand Trails. The property owner is essentially seeking to clarify and memorialize the extent of existing development on the property as well as future allowable uses, and specifically the number of campsites that they would be eligible to construct. And they've requested up to 520 sites. And this is tied into, and again, the public hearing will dive into a bit more detail on this, and the applicant will do their presentation, but tracking back with historical records, Thousand Trails was approved initially as part of a master plan in 1973. The unfortunately record keeping things, over the years didn't quite keep up to as sophisticated as we are today with record keeping. But the 1973 master plan essentially allowed up to 520 total sites. And so today the applicant included their existing conditions plan, which has 335 total sites that are developed. So again, up to 185 additional new campsites, RV tent would be possible under this agreement. In the development agreement language, land use review would be required, essentially site plan review, if and when they wanted to build out the remainder of the sites. Again, this development agreement doesn't preclude them or supersede the requirement to come in through land use review, where we would again notify neighbors, agencies, and those types of, obviously any similar to a typical land use process. One other thing that they've included in their request is essentially for the paving standards to be waived. Our code requires folks to pave access driveways and roadways, but there's a stipulation in our code that if you're outside of an unincorporated community and won't create dust problems for neighbors, that staff can allow an exemption to that. So they've woven that into their development agreement request. Again, queuing this up for hearing on Wednesday, we did provide notice to 14 different agencies and about 100 neighbors in accordance with our procedures ordinance. We did receive one public comment today, which was uploaded to the record, and I'll summarize that as well Wednesday. I expect we might receive a few more. I've gotten some calls and just questions about this proposal. And so that'll be in the record. A lot of folks, I think, are thinking that there's development with this agreement, but I've been just letting folks know, this isn't authorizing any type of construction at this point. It's just to, again, memorialize this 1973 master plan. And then, yeah. And so let's see. So one of the things just wanted to confirm with the commissioners today is that the standard time limits for testimony for Wednesday, unless commissioners see otherwise, 30 minutes for the applicant, 3 for the public, 10 for agencies, and 10 for applicant rebuttal. And so I'll pause there. Want to just answer any questions the commissioners have, again, and then confirm the time limits for Wednesday.
Okay, so 30 for applicant, 3 for public, 10 for agencies, and then rebuttal 10.
Correct, yeah.
Sounds fine.
Okay.
So Hallie, this development agreement isn't approving any specific new developments. There will be a land use application for any additional construction that Thousand Trails wants to do.
Correct, yes. Yeah, and they've anticipated that development would occur on the western side of the property which is what was not ever built out in accordance with their original master plan. Most of the developments, I'd say more in the center of the property, campsites and like their general store, clubhouse, sports courts. But again, any expansion, anywhere on the site is required to come through the land use process.
But with this development agreement, kind of setting expectations of what they were promised, they were offered that they could do. How does that interact with, you want to develop this additional western area. You need to have septic capacity. They will come in and apply, for, go through the septic review process for this additional development. And if the area is not suitable, or you can't develop suitable septic facilities, is that grounds for rejection, or is it, well, you were promised, in the 1970s that you could do this many sites, so you get to do it anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, if legal counsel wants to weigh in on that too, so essentially through the land use process for the actual expansion, if it's determined that, again, like you've alluded to, it's not suitable, I think that would potentially preclude development of that many sites, if I'm tracking that right. So I think this is really, the development agreement is to sort of set an expectation, memorialize this 1970s master plan. But if actual on the ground construction, they still need to meet septic, state law, wetland impacts, buffering through our site plan review. Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to get at, like goalposts type considerations, it's new development, but under an old agreement. And so the fact that this stuff was blessed in the 1970s doesn't mean that we just go back to, well, what were the septic rules in the 1970s? Or what were the existing laws in the 1970s?
Right.
We are still applying our current, our current regulations. Even though this kind of memorializes expectations that were created in the 1970s.
Okay, Stephanie Marshall, Senior Assistant Legal Counsel. Just by way of background, I have seen other development agreements in other jurisdictions, other states actually, where you have like a stormwater management manual that was in existence at the time it was approved. Now, you don't have to, if the stormwater management manual gets updated, you don't have to apply the current standards. The vesting document, which is essentially the development agreement, it holds you to that. This development agreement that's proposed does not excuse them from septic requirements or lock them into applicable septic requirements as of 1973 or the date that the master plan was approved. It does speak specifically to road paving or lack thereof. But that's the only specific, it's more to the number of sites. And to answer your question, Commissioner, if they can't get there from here, if they can't develop those additional sites without septic, if their feasibility is not there, I do not see how they could rely on that agreement to somehow bypass septic requirements. And these are, they're looking at it, or we would be looking at it through the lens of land use approval, whereas septic requirements, those are development standards.
What about traffic? That's another, what kind of traffic analysis will be required? And are there thresholds of traffic creation that would preclude, expansion of the?
Yeah, and similar to like our other, site plan, applications, there is a limited, based on the number of trips that are provided, they may have to provide a traffic memo, full transportation impact analysis, but that's something that if we were to receive an application from them to expand, we would route it to our senior transportation planner. He would then look at the number of expected trips and then coordinate with them on what type of traffic analysis they would have to provide. So certainly that would be part of the consideration of the application.
And then, is to connect all the pieces together, like if the traffic analysis comes back and says, basically at the end, this is all good, but at the entrance, you need to do X, Y, or Z thing. Is that, does that generate system development charges or?
So it may, yeah, or there may be mitigation at the intersection to do, making sure there's clear vision, sort of those things that, their traffic consultant would put a report together, our transportation planner would review that report, and it may trigger SDC charges depending on number of trips and things like that.
Okay. So, it kind of sounds like the development agreement is sort of like an envelope, it can be this much or this big or in these places. And, but just because you've set the envelope, it doesn't mean that you automatically get to do everything in the envelope. You still have to go through all of our land use review process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got that on the, I just pulled up the development agreement page, top of page 3, section 2.2.1. Says, the developer recognizes any future alteration or expansion will require approval from the county. So that's weaved into that agreement, yeah.
Well, that clarification hopefully will put a number of the neighbors at ease.
Yeah.
That there'll be, adequate contemporary review of any proposed additional development. Right.
So kind of stepping back to a high level here, 1986 was a hearings officer decision with a staff memo that defines to the best of their knowledge what was committed to in 1973. Is that what that is? So it's like we're holding on to our rights that we lost track of in 1973.
Exactly.
And it's an official published reference point. So then, and what I'm getting to is, so now this is the development agreement referring to the 1986 information. And I just, confirming I understand this. So then this process started with the property owner going to land use legal people asking them to create this, and then they came to an application to the county. That's how it started?
This process?
Yeah.
Yes,
This one.
yes.
So, it's just them walking in the door saying, we'd like to start a development agreement process referencing 1986. So what I'm getting to is, it references the 7-year development agreement duration.
Mhm.
Is this starting something? Is in there different than, so 1986, it was just put on the table saying, yeah, this is a reference point. Now we're starting a 7-year clock for this development. Is that what's going on?
Stephanie Marshall, Senior Assistant Legal Counsel. The 7-year limit is statutory in Oregon statutes. It says you can have a development agreement, but it cannot exceed 7 years between a county and a developer. So whether it starts something, I mean, basically, if the 7 years expires, then they no longer have any rights pursuant to the agreement.
The
Nor,
1986 and 1973 rights expire also?
well, the rights as set forth in this development agreement. I don't know that you can erase other, rights that exist maybe independently of this agreement. I think the agreement, my understanding of the agreement is that it's supposed to set, or it's intended to set kind of a baseline, like there's a lot of lost
We
history.
agree on all this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
so that, I still kind of wondering, why?
Yeah.
So was 7 years put in, so they've never had a development agreement before. Previously, the staff report and hearings officer decision was just documenting what was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I think in 1986, there maybe was a reference to a development agreement, but we have not been able to find anything under. So I think maybe they were supposed to, at one time, but, it doesn't appear like it got tracked and.
Well, item number 9 said they shall submit a phased development plan to the planning division. That was one of
This
the
isn't that
requirements.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then, has this been reviewed by, so this hasn't gone through a hearings officer? This isn't a staff decision of any sort that we're looking at, it's just a work product handed through an application process to the board of commissioners through the community development department. And then we're doing a public hearing to officially accept it or deny it, would we deny?
To inform the board of concerns, testimony, evidence provided by the applicant, others that are interested, any opponents, to inform your decision as to whether or not you wish to enter into a development agreement as proposed, or that could be modified through the process. That's the action that the board will
So
take.
approval, modification, is there a denial?
You can deny it as well, yes.
So you, property owner, have provided us this and we don't accept it, we
Yep.
need grounds to do that, or would we? I mean, we don't accept it because,
Well, there'd have to be findings,
Yeah.
to support your decision. I mean, I would, if I was the applicant, I might say, well, that was arbitrary. They just said no, and they didn't give me any reasons as to
would that
why.
be appealed then?
Yes, I believe that this is classified as a land use action that could be appealed to LUPA.
Just trying to understand the
Yeah.
scope, I mean,
Sure.
this is kind of
Yeah,
unique,
it
Yeah.
is unique, absolutely, yeah.
So one way to look at it might be this, by extreme analogy, is kind of like a legal, a lot of record type determination. They're just trying to
okay.
confirm the very
Mhm.
base level of what they have. It doesn't guarantee that the 5 other layers of challenge and appeal won't rear their head. It just means they don't have to fight that initial fight of how many can we do potentially. Now they're getting that agreement in place based on some historical data to try to
Yes,
set
okay, well,
that,
that helps,
to
yeah,
set that
so
base.
just agreeing that we have a common starting point.
Mhm.
And then by this action coming to our community development part and the board of commissioners. Kind of tipping the hat that maybe we want to do this in the near future, but they're not saying that yet either. Do some more development,
yeah, correct. They
Right.
would have to make an application
Yeah.
and it would go through the.
but it's not that.
No.
Good, well, I mean, that helps, a lot of record determinations. It's a scenario that helps me.
And will.
And will.
Chair, Commissioners, your planning manager, Will Gross. I think it's, when you have something that has history like this, there's a couple parallel applications that can come up. There can be a non-conforming use verification, as well as a declaratory ruling for initiation use. So the first one is, I did something when the rules were different and I want to keep going. The other one is, I didn't quite do all the things I was allowed to do and I want to keep going because I've already invested significantly in this project. So those are 2 tools that could have been applied in this case, but one of the things I worked with the property owner and their various attorneys over the years, and the facts are pretty murky about what happened in the past. And so what they're really, if I understand correctly, and they'll testify to this, what they're really trying to do is come to an agreement with the board and said, look, in the face of murky facts, we'd like for a 7-year period to have a shared notion of what that history meant. And once they to achieve that, then they could come in with subsequent applications and say, you know, under this development agreement, we've agreed that, you know, we have a right to proceed subject to site plan. You know, there's something like an initiation of a use in there. You know, we built a significant portion of this, we vested our right to it, we have a right to go forward. Or, you know, in kind of a non-conforming use sense, you know, this is something that we established and have an ongoing right to. But this development agreement, I think it's particularly helpful in the case where the kind of a lot of the documents, you know, there's important documents that are lost to time. You know, we've looked for them hard and we can't find them. You know, it seems that the preponderance of the evidence points in a direction, but this is more kind of, this is in the development agreement format, it's less, I'd say it's a little less legalistic. It gives the board more flexibility to say, look, given this murky past, we agree, at least for a 7-year period, that your set of facts makes sense to us, rather than leaving a hearings officer to really dig into the technicalities, but you know, not all the papers there.
So I've been on the property for, well, I don't know, if I'm getting ahead of myself here, but yeah, I mean, I've got some experience out there and we're gonna have a public hearing on that. Are we gonna have, so we'll have the applicant there. Is there any staff work or anybody else gonna try to? I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen. So point out that, hey, they built that something or other in the 90s and now it's not conforming or whatever. I don't know how interesting this is gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, I will say there is no unresolved or pending code violations on the
Yeah.
property. And I think that's also part of their proposal is, this is what's been built. Again, like Will alluded to, the facts are a bit murky of the land use. There is quite a bit of land use decisions that have come through in the 90s and, sports courts and pools and things like that. But other than that, I'll just give a brief kind of set the table, location, and then we'll hear from the applicant.
I think we should anticipate, some neighbor interest in this, just as in the Mazamas case, I think residential neighbors to the west are gonna be hesitant to see, campground development. That this would be one of the many steps on the way towards campground development, relatively close to one of their borders. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they came to you with, fire concerns, noise concerns, other similar issues. The notice has been sent out, and in similar campground scenarios, we've seen similar concerns from neighbors.
Well, and yeah, so we'll get through it. No other questions?
Questions, are we good? Comments? Yeah. Okay, we'll see you on Wednesday.
I guess one
Yeah.
final question. Do we have any sense of how soon after this development agreement is approved, we'll see applications?
I haven't heard, I think
Yeah.
maybe, that'd be a great question for the applicant Wednesday, or they might touch on that as well.
They've been interested in this for over a decade, I don't know what their actual time to act would be.
Talking over 10 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, their original attorney has since retired.
You know. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you,
Good call.
commissioners, see you Wednesday.
Okay. So let's go to item number 3, the treasury report.
Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, Bill Coon, Sheets County Treasurer. Thanks for allowing me to present the August Treasurer's Report. I'll take a few minutes to provide a high-level overview of economic conditions. Been a busy week. So I think the most impactful news over the past few days was the Fed announcement last Wednesday that they were cutting rates by 50 basis points, which was made against a backdrop of a still solid economy and, according to their standards, elevated inflation. On the details of the statement, the Federal Open Market Committee acknowledged the mixed challenges of solid growth and a somewhat slower hiring pace, and the statement also emphasized the need for patience and not reacting to policy changes as the data continues to evolve. The risk with the larger 50 basis point cut, and they were really kind of torn between 25 and 50 basis points. I think towards middle part of last month, they kind of started moving towards a 50 basis point cut. But this likely won't be the pace over the next few months of additional 50 basis point cuts. I think this was kind of the shot over the bow. And as they kind of again react and respond to new economic data, likely we'll be looking at 25 basis point cuts through the end of the year. But again, the Fed attempts to return to what they call a neutral rate environment. Going to take some time to get there. So I think right now, bets are that we're looking at total of 100 basis points and cuts between now and the end of the year, including the 50 basis points that they cut last week. So more to come. And again, they're going to be assessing economic data as it comes in and really trying to make a decision between, once they cut rates, they've kind of lost that tool in their toolbox to continue to see downward pressure on the inflation rate. It was interesting on Friday afternoon, I thought I'd be talking about a pending government shutdown at the end of this month, but it appears that Congress burned the midnight oil over the weekend. And they announced Sunday afternoon that they have an agreement on a short-term funding bill that will fund federal agencies through a continuing resolution for approximately 3 months. It's set to expire on December 20th. So they're going to avert a possible shutdown when the new budget year begins on October 1st. And this will effectively push longer-term budget discussions until after the November election, but likely before a new president steps in, as well as a new Congress in early January. So that's going to be an interesting, a very compressed timeline that needs to take place towards the end of the year, and with the holidays and all that. So
No
more to
Christmas,
come.
maybe.
Yes. I will say that this is the 7th continuing resolution that they've passed so far this year. Kind of kicking the can down the street and waiting, I guess, further direction from either side. Obviously, it's very highly politically charged. And so we'll have to wait and see. I know the Speaker Johnson has been in a challenging position trying to, manage the politics, but also I think both sides have recognized the political folly in terms of going into a partial government shutdown right before the election. So I checked the news just a little bit ago, and I don't see where the House has actually voted in favor of this continuing resolution, but I believe it's pending. And so that's the latest on our federal government funding.
You mentioned neutral rate environment. I mean, that's kind of interesting concept because it was almost too low for too long, and then they ratcheted way up, and then a neutral rate environment. Which,
it's almost impossible to achieve.
Yeah, which you don't know what that
You're
is
trying
exactly. It's all
to,
relative.
conduct surgery with an axe or a hatchet or something where you're going to likely overreact or underreact. And they're trying to obviously get to that, achieve the goal of 2% inflation or under, but very, very difficult to, kind of fine tune things exactly to get to that point. Obviously, the key right now is to avoid a recession. And by all indications, it looks like they may achieve that goal of soft landing for the economy. But still more to come there. See what else can I talk about here? Recent economic reporting for August showed new job creation of 142,000 jobs, which was actually 28,000 more than the previous month. The unemployment rate actually moved down slightly to 4.2% from 4.3% in July. So we're still essentially at full employment. And that again is one of the challenges that the Fed is kind of working around, is that, the unemployment rate has not elevated to the point where they feel like they need to take drastic action, but they don't want to, kind of delay taking action either. On a yearly basis, the August CPI was reported at 2.5%, which was the lowest yearly growth rate since February of 2021. Market sentiment is driven by how the Fed has responded to starting this process of reducing short-term rates. And I did report last month that we would likely see a 50 basis point reduction in short-term rates during this September meeting. And that's what we saw. Market observers are now bullish that there's sufficient economic data to continue to pivot a monetary policy now and again supporting further reductions in rate between now and the end of the year. From a manufacturing perspective, the producer price index has further declined to 1.7% year over year, which was actually below analysts' expectations. And again, this measures the change in price of goods sold by manufacturers. On Friday, it was announced that housing starts rose higher than expected, 9.6% in August, which was the largest since 2020. And housing permits rose 4.9% in August, increasing the annual pace to 1.45 million. Housing in particular has been a drag on GDP growth, and the recent rate cuts are expected to fuel further growth in housing.
The prior month numbers were awful.
So what, they were awful.
They were really
They were
awful,
horrendous.
because I just read
Yeah, we kind of had a lost summer for development. I mean, it just didn't take off during a
Well,
construction season.
seasonality of
Yeah.
construction starts, as we head into winter months, obviously. Northern climates obviously won't be going through a lot of housing starts. The southern portion of the US will certainly be able to take advantage of that. In August, the average 30-year mortgage rate is down to 6.2% from a high of 6.5% in July. So rates are starting to come down, which I think will help a little bit. And then as I usually report on a regional level, I'll provide some data on several markets within Deschutes County. Bend single family residential market had a median sales price of $706,000 in August, which was down from $749,000 in July. And that's actually dropped quite a bit. Our yearly high was $775,000 in June. And again, it's continuing to be impacted by a higher number of sales, 143, and of higher end homes, which are classified as $1 million plus home sales. Of the 148 total sales in August, 34 of these sales, or 23%, were above $1 million, and 39 of those were cash sales. So again, we continue to see a large preponderance of monthly sales as cash sales. And there's now a 4-month supply of homes currently listed, so that's growing as well. So we're starting to see inventory levels go up and the average sales price come down. In Redmond,
so that was the median number then?
that was a median number.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in
That's-
Redmond,
That's really down from June then.
it has dropped quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah, Redmond statistics for the year showed a similar trend with current median sales price of $495 in August, which was down from $528,000 in July. Redmond area permits rose to 35 for the month, which was up from the prior month's total. And again, most sales in the Redmond area continue to be in that kind of low to mid 500,000 range. They've actually dropped below 500,000 now, which again kind of defines affordable housing in the area. So looking at some other markets within Deschutes County, Sisters median sales price was $625,000. Sun River was over $1 million, $1,038,000, and LaPine was $433,000. So, any questions on economic activity? Hearing none.
So you don't have the apartment numbers, do you?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah,
We won't have those
typically,
for another.
as
couple
soon as that
months?
information is released, I'll go ahead and send it out.
Okay.
The August Treasurer's Report, I'll provide a few highlights. The portfolio balance was $281.9 million at month end, which was a decrease of $4.8 million from the prior month. And this decline is primarily due to our funding of seasonal construction and ongoing expense with the courthouse project. And then we processed a small tax turnover during the month. Net investment earnings were $810,000 for the month, which was down slightly from last month's earnings, but $626,000 higher than a year ago. Reflective of, again, our higher rate environment compared to a year ago, and year-over-year growth in the portfolio as well. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. The LGIP rate remained at 5.3% for the month. However, the recent Fed rate cut is expected to impact short-term rates fairly soon. So I would expect to see that rate start to adjust downwards. I just have no feel for when that might happen, but just be prepared for that.
Okay, so why did our rate say 4.6 then on the FDIP?
Excuse me,
On this little chart, it says 4.6.
did I have a typo in there?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll look at that.
So that's a percentage of money.
Oh, percentage, yeah.
Yeah,
Look
you
at
mentioned.
that first chart.
Okay, it's in the percent,
You okay
sorry.
with that?
I was thinking that was the rate. I was
Yeah.
looking at it wrong.
Yeah, don't worry.
Okay.
And then just a couple of other points. Again, portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. We talked about the LGIP rate. The portfolio does have a somewhat weighted time to maturity or skewed weighted time to maturity of 0.81 years. And it is actually being impacted by the courthouse funding, which is invested to match the expected funding need. And also note that the distribution schedule in that report now shows the portion of each month's redemptions that are targeted towards courthouse funding. So this is more illustrative of dedicated funding needs each month. And we're still targeting maintaining roughly $40 million in short-term liquidity, which again is yielding roughly that LGIP rate of 5.3%. And this is also proven beneficial as we enter into our seasonal revenue slowdown over the next few months before the next tax collection cycle.
Any comments coming down? US Treasuries have been like the go-to for this last year or more. All of a
That
sudden,
market is starting to adjust quite.
Yeah, there'll be a point where all of a sudden it'll be corporate bonds or whatever, the other tools you
Exactly.
can invest in will be.
Yeah, well, we'll actually
Are
be looking at some alternative investments, obviously based on risk and a duration of the investment. But again, we'll be we actually are sitting on a few $1 million right now that we're going to try to invest here this week. And then we'll be gearing up obviously for our tax collection period and going through our next investing cycle. So yeah, we're just we'll be building our maturity schedule out to make sure that we have continuing funding into the future.
And then the portfolio balance chart you replaced in here, and I always kind of look at that sawtooth that during the year that was replaced with these graphs page. Is there a thought there, or you're just showing something different?
Well, there's a graph and then there's also the there is a chart on, are you looking at the actual? Look at,
Well, just the, we have three charts on this second page of the memo. And in the past, the middle one has been the portfolio balance over time. That's kind of like a 3-year window or something like that. All of a sudden, it's the,
yeah, I haven't changed the reporting from month to month. It's identical to what we've been reporting in prior months, so hasn't really been a change there.
for the portfolio balance chart, it's. I'm missing it. I mean, it's no big deal, but as I say, when I think of seeing that though, it kind of shows the annual low and then the step up in the revenue coming in through taxes and then the incline down. And that slope is what's always interesting, because that slope could change here now that, you know, we're past ARPA, past a bond
Oh,
measure.
absolutely. And I think again, Commissioner, just recognizing that we had a huge influx of funding related to the courthouse project.
Well,
That
and
we're spending
ARPA,
down
which was
as
just
well.
dropped in our budget.
And ARPA funds are virtually gone. So,
Well, so, and I think of the annual, and this is for all of us, I mean, this, I'm just talking to you about it now, but. You know, the scope of the total rolled up budget used to be 300 something million, then it's to 400 something million, now it's 500 million or so. And I just wonder if we're gonna calibrate back a little bit, you know, in the whole picture, because of those big ticket items that we've seen.
I believe we need to.
Well,
Yeah. Certainly looking to kind of normal reoccurring cash inflows and without governmental stimulus. We're not gonna be receiving or seeing a lot of these special projects, I believe. Especially as we go through a new Congress and with the election cycle, I think there's gonna be a lot of pressure on kind of this next budget approval.
As I say, I mean, just, yeah, we might have peaked and we're gonna normalize, because we'll still grow past back into whatever it was the last few years, but it'll be interesting to see the next year what the scope of the total capacity of the county.
No, I think you're spot on. Good insight. Any other questions?
Let us know about the apartments.
I will.
I see a bunch of them are being, whatever, built.
Absorption.
Well, a little bit of
Price point.
slack in the market, you know, I mean, an open apartment is gonna hopefully drive it.
Well, instead of,
Affordable housing for somebody, you know, because the whole market will adjust to that.
instead of giving 3 months of free rent, I think actually lowering the rent on a monthly basis would make it feel a lot better for those that are looking. So,
Well, the city of Bend is close to finalizing a new incentive program for developers. It's gonna be a tax increment financing program. As opposed to what they were doing before, so I think it'll be interesting to see how they roll out that program. And what impact it has on.
They'll still be shaving off the county's tax base though.
there'll be no parking, so think of that.
There's no parking, yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Love parking. Okay, item number 4. Robert, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Robert Tintle, Chief Financial Officer. So today in front of you should be page 39 in your packet. We'll be going over the August 2024 reports. I'll also be provide some issues again, just some issues that we're dealing with and an update of a recent conference I went to, because it will just how it impacts our budget either this year or in the future. So first, I do want to just let you know that recently, this past week, they had the OACFO conference, the Oregon Association of County Treasurers and Finance Officers. And there were a number of great presentations there. One of them, I just wanted to highlight, we had a 90-minute overview on PERS. I won't bore you with 90 minutes, although it was really interesting, all the information they provided. Yeah. But I do want to just highlight a few of the comments or a few slides that that they presented. And actually it was an idea that maybe during our mid-year meeting, we actually, if this person's available, just have them come and speak to the budget committee about PERS, because I think it would, a shorter version of that topic, but just give a good overview on that. So we're going to follow up on that and see, but it is understanding how it works in the finances, because as you know, PERS is one of our major personnel costs, along with health insurance and of course salaries and wages. Anyway, they gave a presentation on PERS, and valuations are released a year after the valuation period. What that means is, so your rates change, you know, every 2 years. We're in a biennial cycle with PERS rates. But the rate takes effect 18 months after the valuation date. So for example, we're going to receive our new rates in October of 2024 that will set the rates for our fiscal year 25 through 27 year. But it was based on a December 31st, 2023 date. So whatever the result of the portfolio was, the PERS actuarial report on December 31st, 2023, then it takes them almost a year to get the reports compiled. And in October of this year, we'll receive our new rates. And that's when we'll do some new projections. And then those will be our rates for 25 through 27. So there's that lag in time.
So they didn't say they magically figured out how to do it in 6 months instead of 18.
No. And but the state really does like the 2-year cycle, because they're on a biennium budget and they don't want their rates to change mid-cycle. Where those, when we have annual budgets, we're more adaptable, where we can adjust our budgets for that. So one thing where we stand now, the 2023 returns were at 5.98% for the PERS. portfolio, and in 2024 through June, that's the latest information they have posted on their website, it's only 3.34%. So one thing that's important about that is PERS has a rate guarantee to tier one at 6.9%. Used to be 8%, but now it's 6.9. So as you know, but about 75% of PERS fundings comes from investment earnings. So when they're not achieving assumed rates in PERS, that means the difference has to be made up from employers, right? Because if you're not getting the investment returns you expect, then employers will have to pay more. So that's just kind of a heads up. They say, yes,
Repeat that, so for 2024, it's
3.34% through June. It was 3.34%. All of 2023 through the year was 5.98%. And again, have an assumed rate of 6.9. That's what it is.
So that's good, the fact that that was the date that they're calculating it from, good for our cost of doing business.
It's good that it's better
Biennial.
than a lower rate. However, it will catch up. One of the points that made during the presentation is it's 18-month gap from when they do their valuation to when they set rates. So the longer you wait and push the can down the road, it's just going to make it worse, as opposed to setting our rates higher. We would have, not that anybody wants higher rates, but we would have started collecting higher rates sooner of where they should have been. And so it would have, your unfunded actuarial liability would have been lower.
Go down.
But it's the law, it's how it works. It's a lot of analysis and information. So some of the
We're
key,
looking forward to that presentation.
right? Yeah, so the 2023 per system-wide valuation, the unfunded actuarial liability grew by system-wide 1.3 billion. The funding status decreased from 73% to 72%. So not a big decrease, but it's still a 1.3 billion difference just by that small percentage. Average payroll rates in the next biennium 25 to 27 will increase. The average is 3.45% increase in PERS rates, but she was very clear. There is no average employer. Every employer is different, even though that comes in. And we have side accounts, so we won't know what our effect of the side accounts until October as well, when those rates come out. Main reason for the increases, again, there were poor returns in 22 and 23, as I just mentioned. They were below the assumed rates. And there were significant increases in the payroll costs, over 20% over 2 years, which increased wages, which is a good thing because it keeps up with inflation, but it leads to higher final average salary calculation. And it draws down the money you put in the side account, it draws it down sooner. So again, actuarial rates will be provided in October, and that's what we'll see our effect with our side account. We currently have about $21 million in our side account. That was as of the 2022 actuarial valuation report. When they set the initial advisory rates, and again, we'll get our new estimates for the next year in October of this year.
So did that come from the, what is it, 13 million in the quarter, the 25% match, and then we had like 5 million on top of that?
Yep, and earnings. You can either get earnings or you can have losses, but there's earnings. We'll find out more of the details.
Okay.
They,
Thank God we did that, right?
yeah, no, that was a good benefit. PERS will be offering a new employer incentive fund in 2025, and they have $45 million set aside for that. So that is something that we're going to do some analysis on to see if we should invest in that or not. We do have internally 4.8 million in our PERS reserve internally in Fund 135. The question is, if you invest in the employer incentive match program, you get that 25% match, which is awesome. They spread it over a 20-year period. Given the increases in PERS, would it be better for us to keep that PERS reserve, help offset rates in the near term? And then what does that mean? Because long term, we expect our rates should go down anyway. So we're going to be doing some analysis in that regard.
Are we doing any, are we utilizing that PERS reserve for anything at this point, or is it just a static fund that has interest?
It's gaining interest. We are not subsidizing internal rates with it yet, but we have it there for those years where we can. This year, we actually had, we lowered the PERS rate slightly because we had a 1 year where we paid off a bond payment. So we actually decreased rates in the current budget year slightly, but knowing that next year we'll have to increase it back up where it was. And other comments, we had roundtable discussions, and again, this is the OACFO conference, which has, of the 36 counties, there were probably 25 counties represented. We just had a roundtable about what does your budget look like for now or in the coming years, and how is that? And there was really a shared consensus on, from most counties, not all, most counties, on budget shortfalls. They're focused on a balanced and sustainable budget. They're looking at a financial plan, looking at raising revenues or cutting expenses. Some of the comments, again, this is, and I'm not naming any counties, but this is closed door internal nerd finance geeks together, you know, and treasurers. So things like, well, they didn't listen to me last year. They didn't believe I had a shortfall, or, you know, so they're just sharing these comments. But realizing it's a political, and finance presents the facts, and then it's like there's others that determine budgets, and there's needs that arise. So we're just presenting the information. Another county talked about how they had it was $31 million shortfall in their general fund. Then it went to 25 and 22. So they're still have a $15 million shortfall this coming year. They're making service level adjustments and cutting programs. Another county, yes, they talked about shortfall and how the PILT, we set it, same with us, we set up that new agency fund to try to get additional PILT money. That's not coming through as we expected. So, and there were 4 counties that did that. Yeah.
It's not for us either. I had heard from Klamath County that was rejected. this
Yep,
year.
and that's who reported that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll find out more.
I thought maybe we still got
Still
it
hold on.
because we hadn't done it for years and years before.
Well, we challenged that. We challenged it, but unless there's some budging somewhere, we'll see what
The
happens.
challenge was for the clawback,
Yeah,
it wasn't prospective. Although it had prospective impacts, but it was the clawback, they want the money back, and then we've already got,
We've already spent it, haven't we?
I don't know, Custodian would have to answer that one, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And then, although there were a few counties that actually they have a surplus, and one county has $108 million general fund reserve, so they're feeling really good. They also have some marijuana money that, you know, that I think has aided in that. But anyway, just a variety of different things, but there was a shared consensus on the general fund and the outlook for all their organizations. And then that leads me to the fiscal year 26 budget pre-planning meetings that we're having here, because that just fits right in with what we're doing. We're not, obviously, thankfully, we're not in the dire straits of the millions and millions of dollars shortfall already happening, but we're taking a proactive measures with our budget for fiscal year 26. And we've already met with admin and HR and departments of the general fund and users of the general fund through transfers. And we're starting those meetings there. So we'll be having a lot of conversations coming up, and I believe you've been briefed on some of those high level meetings as well. So we're not ignoring any of that.
To be more exact, you said a few counties have an excess funding, in addition to the one that has 108 million. How many others have an excess?
There were 2 others, so there were 3.
It was a total of
There were
3
3.
of the 25 that were attending.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Just wondered.
And again, it's not scientific, it's just a roundtable that as counties were discussing, their financial challenges is what the conversation was.
Were some of the ones, were any of the ones who had surpluses like the Columbia Gorge counties that have massive wind farms?
They didn't expand. Yeah, on that, so I can't answer that directly. Okay, so that was just kind of an overview. It was a good conference overall, and we're looking forward to seeing items moving forward. So now on to your financial report for August 2024. That's on page 40 in your packet. So this is through just August, 2 months in the fiscal year. Again, it's not a lot of trends to begin with. First page there, just general fund, high level overview. General fund is 1.9 million or 4.1% of the budget. By comparison, last year it was at 1.6 million or 3.6 of budget. and expenses are 5.9 million or 12% compared to 7.2 million or almost 16% of budget at this time last year. There's some charts there to see, again, it's early in the year and we are gearing up for our, tax season coming up. I'll talk a little about that in a moment. Page 41 on your packet is the FTE position control summary. No change from last month. And the number of FTE for this current fiscal year, you'll notice our year to date for the 2 months is 10.8%. Last year, it was, once we completed the full fiscal year, it was 10.55% are unfilled, and the prior year was 10.43. So that's we're pretty consistent with 10%. It was higher at some points and then lower, but it's been averaging about 10%, a little over 10%. Going to go forward a few pages to the general fund on page 47. As mentioned, we are gearing up for our tax season. That's why our revenues only show coming in at 4% when we should be at 16% of the fiscal year. As we know, the major revenue comes in November, starting in October, but November for the taxes. We are expecting the assessor's office, they're very busy. They're expecting typically they certify the roll mid-October. I believe by the 15th they're usually done. For our department, finance, taxes, we have to get the tax statement out by October 25th. So everyone's busily working on all those, getting ready for that season. So we're looking forward to that. Page 49, TRT fund 160-170. We are looking at our actuals for July and August. So far for the 2 months, for the first 2 months of this fiscal year, we're up 2.1% in revenue over last year. So that's good. July was 5.6%, so that was a big increase. August was only 0.2%. So then that brings the year to date down to 2.1. But again, August wasn't a decline, so that's good news over last year. So even though the year to date dropped from just 1 month, now we have 2 months to show 2.1.
When the fire was burning and Sun River was under, I started calling hotels to find a spot for some people that were at Sun River Resort, and everyone was like really booked. I mean, and then I started calling in Redmond and I found one hotel with 4 rooms at night. It was in the middle of the week. So,
Okay.
yeah, remember when they were changing the levels to level
Yeah.
2, and so I thought, wow, yeah, it was pretty fascinating. It was hard to find a hotel room.
Yeah, it was interesting to note. I think the fire was it within 6 miles, a little over 6 miles within Sun River, and that's always the challenge with protecting this fund and looking at the sensitivity to whether smoke or fire.
Right.
Okay. Page 52 is Sheriff's Office Fund 255. We did not receive a projection update for the last column of the report for this month, but with it being so new in the year, I'm not concerned about that yet. You will notice that they are ending fiscal year 25, the second column, fiscal year 24, the second column of actuals, 15.5 million, where they're carrying over in their budget, in the middle section for 25, the beginning fund balance at 12.4 essentially. So that's good. That this year they'll be starting with more than they anticipated. But again, we're not final in posting everything yet for the last year. We are hoping by October 1st. So just next week is when we plan to typically have all the expenditures for the last fiscal year posted. Next page, Health Services Fund 274.
Looking at budget for the sheriff's office, so it looks like they almost doubled the cost of the ranch. Went from, the budget was 334, they actually spent 309, and the budget now is 610,000.
Yeah.
Last time I talked about it, we got like $9,000 worth of hay delivered for free. So I don't know, that just seems really, really high.
Yeah, I haven't heard from that. I don't
I'm sure they're
recall during
watching,
the budget discussion.
But hay hasn't doubled. Maybe health has.
But overall, for the sheriff's office, I mean, is this a better fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2024? Is that? Could that be largely attributed to vacancy savings or some other factor?
I would assume most of their savings has been coming from vacancy savings. Yeah, I'm sure mixed in here and there a little bit, but the majority of it is due to vacancy savings. 53 in your packet, Fund 274, again, just highlighting the other fund, and this is all their funds combined. They're ending the fiscal year 2024, the actual is calling an 11.7 million, where their budget for the new year is at 10.10 million. And so they'll be starting with 1.7 more than they anticipated. And again, some of these numbers aren't final. Once we get through all the accounting, we'll see where they land. But right now it's trending in a good area, in a good way. It's better to start the year with more than you anticipated than less, because then when you anticipate less, then you have to cut your expenditures to account for that reduction.
And would you also attribute that to vacancy savings or?
That could be a number of items for them, and also their revenues when they come in. Some of their revenues come in higher than anticipated with some of their grants when they get, so a combination there. Community development on page 57, Fund 295. Again, we get the updates from them, which is good, but permitting and application volumes continue to be in alignment with volumes experienced during the 2015 to 2017 period. And they continue to monitor permit and application volumes, but right now again, early in the year to see where they're at, but we know that those reports we're looking at each month as they go. I'm gonna skip quite a few pages and let's go to, but any question on any pages, obviously we can follow up on. Page 70, almost near the end, the health benefits fund. I do want to read out a few things for that fund.
Oh, I did have a question.
Okay.
On page 63 on the Fair and Expo,
Yes,
on first stall rental, it showed up 0. And that would be for what? July and August. And I'm just wondering why that showed up as 0. That doesn't seem to be, because we had that huge cutting show, and I'm sure some of those cutters paid for their stalls early.
and we'll have to check.
Yeah, I mean,
On that.
yeah, it definitely shouldn't be 0. So somehow it went somewhere else.
We're talking to Jeff today, he said that, we've had these big, music festivals and events, but sometimes the alcohol sales are going down right now, from last year, so even though the events are happening and there's good things happening, maybe there's more or less profit in some of these events just because of the sales, so that's a trend that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a good sign, because that's where they make
It's down.
some of their funds, their
But
revenue.
it's better for people actually
There you
not to
go.
be drinking so much.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yes,
alcohol is.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating for more,
Yeah.
especially not $9
No.
for drinks, they're so expensive.
well, buy your
Nah,
your Coke, your
the numbers are going down.
Well, no, if they, because what people are really looking for now is like non-alcoholic drinks that
Yeah.
are a bit. Or actually, people have quit drinking as much and they're using marijuana, and that's what's affecting the beer industry. So, yeah, it's really been impactful. So I did have a question too on page 67, I think that one. I was noticing that the RV park resources, we really brought that down quite a bit from last year, even though last year's actuals was 535,000. We're only, it's not gonna be as good this year. Is that because we just think the economy is not as good?
It could be at the time, I mean, we'd have to follow up with Jeff on that one, but when they, when they were preparing their budget, they didn't know where they'd actually end up, and maybe the trends were looking a little less, but they might, I'd follow up, and I'll follow up on these and send an email out on these follow-up questions.
I don't know, Whitney, did you have anything there?
We need to check with Jeff. The only thing I could think of there in that decrease in budgeted amount is that they are using the RV park at times to accommodate larger events. And so it could be that it's just less available for sort of the day-to-day rentals because it's being sort of blocked out for use by those larger events, but we should double check with Jeff
Okay.
to follow up.
Cause it's down like 46,000, I think. Okay, so now you're gonna get to my favorite account.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
we don't want to skip that.
no, we wouldn't want to.
No, and we don't want to. No, it's because it's an important fund that we are monitoring and looking at. So at the very top line under resources, internal premium charges. So you will see in that first line at the end, note A. It's because you'll see a variance between the budget at 30.5 million and the projection, the second last column at 35.5 million, so about a $5 million increase. And note A speaks to the fact that originally we budgeted 15% increase. However, after getting our latest claims costs, after the budget was approved and then adopted, we saw claims costs coming in more, so we initiated at even higher rate, an additional 15% starting in August this first month. So they adjusted the projection. So we anticipate to get $5 million more in premiums. These are the departmental premiums this fiscal year because of that. And the next line are under requirements, the first line there under health benefits, there's note C. And that's where we are increasing claims costs actually by expecting $6 million. Claims are anticipated to be higher than what's originally budgeted there as well. A couple more items. The total fund balance, the line at the bottom, you'll see note F. This is a very long note. But one thing that came out through, as you know, just released today, in fact, was the health benefits fund audit.
Yes,
The internal auditor presented that one of the original comments in the draft was it was unclear if the board was aware or not that we had a policy on the health reserves fund and what it was. And really, it's this fund balance number that triggers. And I know we've talked a lot about this number is lower than we wanted. That's why we're trying to build it up over the next few years. But that is representative of the contingency or the reserves that we have for that fund. So this just reiterates, and it'll be a standing comment on there that we do have policy F13, which sets the appropriate reserve levels for this fund as approved and adopted by the board.
Well,
Which is about $8 million.
in the last few years, we kept looking at it from, we were way above it, and what should
Exactly.
we dial down to? And now it looks like we're looking up to it, but yeah, no, we knew. There's a
Exactly.
number out there that would probably be a good goal for us.
Yeah, and I reiterated, I sounded confident that the board was aware of what the numbers were in the financials, but this just confirms that it's out there as a messaging. So I thought that's an easy informational item to add, and that way anyone looking at these reports will have that information available to them.
So, and this may be HR, but I mean, the conclusion I'm seeing is that we are, and you can just confirm if this makes sense. We are seeing a kind of the response real time in the cost of healthcare in a covered population. Different than somebody that will have a insurance carrier in the middle. As in, this is pretty tangible what's happening, and we're seeing it in a very public fashion here. You know, 1,200 employees, 2,500 covered lives, and the cost just slipping away from us right now. And I guess, does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, we are seeing
Back then.
consistent, similar with other organizations, but the healthcare industry, of course, as we talked about, the high claims costs are due to inflation. We've seen a large increase in inflation. The cost of healthcare providers, even here locally, we know they're paying more, so things cost more. The prescription benefits, the certain prescriptive drugs that's seen higher usage in there. And then for us specifically, though, a couple of high claims. And we're always going to have some higher claims, but when there's a couple of higher claims out there that do hit the plan as well. So all of that does contribute to the
Would
higher
this be-
costs that we are seeing.
I guess-
in real time.
I'm just thinking this is an early indicator for other benefit plans. They're gonna see this maybe in a little bit more of a lag because we're self-funded.
That could be, yeah. Yeah, because all healthcare costs are going up, whether you're self-insured or you use, an insurance carrier for that. The budget office, we are gonna meet with our benefits consultants and go over the current claims, where they see costs going, talk about trends, especially as we start developing and thinking about the budget for next year. Now, last year, we thought that, even talking with the consultants, we thought the rates would be lower than
Yeah.
what they were, but we're gonna.
I think the glasses are way too rosy, honestly.
Yeah,
My husband had a bill 2 years ago in April and it was like 40,000, but he spent a night in the hospital. The other day, I got a statement for something he had done and it was like 40,000 and it was nothing. I said, what was this for? But it was 40,000.
Yeah.
So I'm going like, the costs have definitely, gone crazy, and you cannot say when we had, what, 8,000 procedures not done here in the community, those costs were gonna really be compounded by not, they postponed, and they were calling them, elective surgeries, and they were not elective, because when you postpone like that. Yeah, it was coming, and our auditors saw that a year ago.
Yeah.
Cause there was a paragraph in our statement.
so one thing about this one too, so if you look at fiscal year 24, you'll see our budget, once we had the final, we came back many times to you to have this discussion and we adjusted the budget. We thought we might end around $1.07 million. Actuals, as of right now, it's 3.3 million, but we are expecting about 400,000 more. We have one more bill that we're expecting from specific source to accrue back. So we're expecting that to be about 3 million. And I do remember one of the budget meetings, Dan Emerson, oh, I think this might be around $3 million. So he was right on about that, where we're at. So we still have to, it's still way lower than what the fund needs to be, but that means we'll carry over some. But you'll see we did budget a $5 million carryover for beginning fund balance for fiscal year 25 there in the middle, where 2 million, that should be reduced by 2 million because, right, we need to. And we'll come back for the budget adjustment for that increase that the budget in the health benefits, it was the dental TPA costs that didn't get budgeted. So it's about right on target, in other words, where they thought it would be. So, but there's just a lot going on through this account.
I think that's an understanding.
Absolutely. And that's why we're focusing a lot on it internally. We really are. And having lots of discussions. And obviously that's why rates increased again, even after the budget was adopted.
So Robert, when we do that $2 million adjustment, then our budgeted total fund balance for FY 25 will be 6.2 million.
Yes. Unless there's other little minor changes, but that's yes, what we'll do. Yeah.
Commissioner Dare Jeff says you'll see Forstall revenue in the September financials. So,
There you go.
okay,
But there should have been money though. There must have been in it, whatever.
It could be a
I mean,
delay
so
in
many
both
times you have to pay early when you're reserving stalls. I mean, that's what I see in all my,
yeah, we can follow up on the why, but just.
I was like going, where did that money go? Anyways,
Thank you.
so,
Thank you.
and it looks like 911 is doing okay.
2 months in.
Yeah, well, and they're at, what is it, 4 employees that they're short, so that's really outstanding.
Yeah.
For that department, because remember how much we had to worry about them, yeah, they're 485 short, they've been, that's the number. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
Thank you, Robert. We had, other items?
I've got one thing, so I'm going to stay on this afternoon I'm going to dial into a legislative meeting here at 2:30 and then be there for 8:30 in the morning for another one, technology and CIO update from the state, so that's my SIEC stuff. Then also, follow up with some other legislative, meetings, also coordinating with Doug if I can, so I'm gonna do that yet today. My one note for my fellow commissioners though, so the Lapine overpass, this is back to transportation and the transportation package and possible OTC commissioner. I just want to let you guys know that, I'm gonna mention it a few times. In fact, we have an abandoned project basically out there, the Lapine overpass. Hopefully the ODOT can just start looking at that. I was talking to somebody, I forget, and then they didn't know anything about it, you know, so I just wanna make sure that people hear about that, the fact that someday either we finish it or redesign a solution, cause the city of La Pine's ready to go. You know, the development, water sewer's been done, and now there's this abandoned project that's out there, so. You know, if I get to talk to anybody, oh, I guess it was Representative Reschke, you know, he didn't know anything about that history, he just didn't know the current status of it, that's what it was.
My impression was that ODOT was waiting some number of years to see essentially whether that the sinking stabilized at a certain point after they put all that weight on it. But I lost track of when that waiting period would be over.
Well, and
For them
then,
to reevaluate
you know,
because.
Bob Townsend's at COIC now, so he won't be in there, cause he would have been able to say, oh yeah, this is the status of it, because he talked to us in front of the city council of La Pine. So as I say, it's something that I'll mention to people in passing, you know, as transportation projects are being discussed, and as I say, I'm not advocating for, you know, vote yes on a transportation package if you do my project, I'm not starting there, it's just a project I want people to hear.
So they had originally, I think, like 17 million allocated for that, and they said that all the money was. Well, they spent all the money though.
Yeah.
They spent all the money, even though,
Well, and that
Didn't
big
all get
path parallel in the right of way was part of that money too, is my understanding. That was the last one. So now they can close their bank account on that, their project account. But, yeah, and they're gonna do engineering, so it's, yeah, just something to mention, you know,
Was that an HB 2017 project
no,
or was that earlier?
it was right
Before.
before that, yeah.
'Cause
And I mean, it looked like it was
hearing
just-
about, I was hearing quite a number of HB 2017 projects that aren't done yet.
Yeah,
Now with inflation, you know, they legislatively approve them. They assign certain dollar amounts to them and you know, before they can even get to their next to the next transportation package. There's a matter of cleaning up all these projects that were promised that now the price tag is way bigger than the dollars that they allocated.
well, they
Be
allocated
a
20
mess.
million for Lower Bridge and county wrote 10 million, so now it's a $30-some million project. You know, and that was, I think, our professional staff leaning into it, seeing that scenario out there, knowing that if we don't lean into this, it'll be an abandoned project or a named project that didn't get executed. So, you know, I really appreciate our staff for being on it, but we had to write a $10 million check for that. Out of the resources luckily we had,
And I,
which is some of it's built, which is good.
yeah, and the project was maybe not what was originally scoped in HB 2017 either.
Yeah, so
After
it should,
after all the public process was done.
so maybe that's a learning experience to know that our legislative discussions on the floor and the committee work, they probably shouldn't be estimating cost of projects. They can name the projects, but please don't say,
Well-
we're gonna give you $20 million to do this project.
they need to have an inflation,
Or
into
something,
the system. So that if
Hopefully we
they,
learn from it.
yeah,
But yes, all I'm saying is I'm gonna mention it a few times, because it was before that package.
okey doke. Commissioner Chang, on Thursday, they have that managed camp meeting for Redmond at 1:30. Is that in your calendar, okay?
So that's the one that's.
That's when
this-
we're
this-
alternating,
The second one?
yes.
Or is?
It's the second one, because the first one was on September 5th, and it's supposed to be every 2 weeks, but they didn't have it last week.
Yep, at 1:30 P.M. And then my.
You do, okay, all right, so I'll take it off the mind then.
I can't remember whether I actually got to mentioning this or not last week, but for Commissioner DeBone's benefit, on Wednesday, October second, all the agencies that collaborated or partnered to make that West Bend prescribed fire pilot happen. They expanded prescribed burning with, expanded smoke production.
I think you did say that last Monday.
They're
and
gonna
you
do
did
they're gonna do a tour on some, I don't think they still have announced what time that tour is gonna start. I asked them to try to start late morning so that we can potentially all go on that field trip. wanted to.
Yeah, I'm available. I mean, hopefully. I don't understand the concept of. As I say, EPA and DEQ keeping us safe from smoke when we had to. Have smoke all summer, but. Yeah, it's what we do.
There's the smoke that regulators can control, and there's the smoke that regulators can't control. And it's pretty silly, but you know, we saw last spring. Those agencies working really hard to make it possible for us to get.
Yeah, well, and we do have a social license to be able to do that too. So it's a shame when it just becomes a state and federal regulation issue. It's. Yeah. But yeah, that's not for us to debate.
That's why we did that whole pilot. Yeah. And, you know, I'll just say that I am very concerned about us being able to burn that number of acres in future years. Took a whole lot of agency coordination last year to make that happen, make that possible, and there's no guarantee that agency coordination is gonna continue unless we keep pushing for it. The other thing I'll share is, so I'll be in Salem tomorrow afternoon for a confirmation hearing for the Oregon Transportation Commission.
And yeah, so I'm working my way back. I'll leave mid-afternoon and then I go to the travel Oregon dinner. Yeah, so is anybody Commissioner Gary, you're at the Visit Central Oregon Board? So this, I don't know,
I got invited, but I just said I couldn't.
okay, so I was just basically offered because nobody else was be able to make it, okay.
Right.
Just making sure.
Yes, you're welcome, and
Thank you.
I was told by, I saw Megan, when was it, Saturday? And she said she's working with Warm Springs a lot, they're doing that huge project up there with British Hope. And then the Warm Springs residents are living like 52 years or something, their average life. So, you know, hopefully we're gonna find out healthier ways for there to be, you know, changing their lifespan. It's really impacted. You see the difference between the Confederated Tribes and the Umatilla. You know, I just sat by them at the roundup and they're adding a whole new tower to Wild Horse. It's incredibly successful. Yeah, a whole new, brand new hotel tower is gonna be there. So it will be done maybe next year, but you know, they have Hamleys, I have this, you know, and hopefully Canada will be there.
Yeah, it's redeveloped.
A good,
I'll go see it.
and that they had Clint Black concert, which got shut down, right? The summer, no, it didn't, it was during the storm. And anyway, yeah, but they're trying to do some different things there. But the life expectancy was incredibly, it was really depressing when I heard that number. So thank you, Megan, for what she's doing there. The number of people that were living in houses was astronomical in their homes. So it's challenging for them. And then we did have the behavioral health monthly meeting Friday at Courtney and went through some bylaw changes. Looking at the bylaws and it was a good meeting. Talked about the RAC card. So is there anything else? Nobody else has anything? All right, do we have an executive tonight? Okay, so we have our meeting then Wednesday, 9 AM, and I believe we have at least 3 public hearings. So 9 AM, if you care to make testimony, be there early, be there promptly, and or you could do it on Zoom too. So 9 AM, Wednesday, Muskie, the 25th of September. Thank you.
Take a photo of you leave class, your take thanks, because Kathy just got like everywhere, so I just wanted to let you know why I was taking a photo. No, the